So. I'm short, so I'll stand over here maybe. So I just want to share with you a little bit about my family story. My dad's parents came over from little tiny Hungary that would fit in Lake St. Clair. My grandma was pregnant at the time, so they decided grandma would stay in Hungary and my grandpa Joe would come to Canada. So my grandpa's specific instructions to my grandma were, Chris, I'll see you in Canada after the baby's born, and off he went. And he made his way to Saskatchewan. And after she had the baby 3-year-old in tow, got on a ship, came to Canada, landed in the Maritimes. No English and no idea that there's any more to Canada than just, but it's Joe and he's in Canada. That's what she could say. Mugged on her trip, had no money, and relied on the community in the Maritimes to get her to Saskatchewan, where Grandpa Joe was crop sharing. She made it all the way there with no English, got off the conveyance that got her there and was looking for Joe Etzl, finally met some Hungarians who could speak with her, and they said, oh, you just missed him. He moved to Ontario. A little bit more specific, still a very large body of land. Discovered that the steel foundry was hiring, and so that got her closer and finally found him. Zero English, learned to speak English, decided that their family was not going to speak Hungarian at all. And so they were only going to speak English. So none of my uncles or my dad can speak Hungarian, but lived in absolute poverty. The first Canadian baby died. And they, with their community, worked together, thank you, to succeed and to bring themselves up in our country to a more comfortable way of living and to raise their children. And, you know, they died being successful people who enjoyed living in Canada and, you know, had their children, raised their children here and are contributing to our society now. But it was a big struggle for a long time with their family. The other side of my family with poverty, my mom ended up being a single mom, and she was ill, and she was so poor that she worked at a restaurant. The owner was wonderful in the sense that he let the children do their homework in the corner, and when they cleared your plates, the plates went to my siblings, and that's the meal they got for the day. And then at night, they would put blankets on the floor, and that's where they slept. If it weren't for the generosity of this gentleman, because the food could have gone in the garbage. That's what most restaurant owners would have done. They would have said, thank you for working for me, but your family's not living here, and off you go. My family wouldn't have survived. My mom was very ill. When she would go to the hospital, the kids would be separated into foster care. Then when she got better, this gentleman gave her back her job and they would move back in. It's by sheer blessing of strangers that my family was able to stay together and to prosper. And the generosity of other people that my family was able to become successful, turn their lives around, own a house, go to school, graduate from college and university and do well. Luckily, I was born later in my mom's journey, and I didn't face those same hardships as my siblings. They're still on my heart. And when I look at the community in Windsor and I see so much need everywhere. And when I was looking for a position outside of early child education, I found Ready, Set, Go. I thought it was an interesting blend because they help both people. They help people who live in poverty, and we help people who are new to Canada. Whoever wants to come through our doors and wants help. So the way we meet people is we have a drop-in center where families with kids birth to 6 can come in, play, hang out. Currently, we have a very high population of people from the Middle East. So we want to respect their culture and their past, as well as help them with their current situation. So we have books that are in both languages. Because we tell our parents that literacy is important and it's important to read to your children, but if they can't access things to read to their children, then it doesn't help their children. It only hurts their children. So we have both. We put up the English alphabet, we put up the Arabic alphabet, we celebrate both, but we do encourage families to learn English, to practice the English words while they're at the drop-in center and whatnot, because that will help them as they go. We do give out vegetables, fresh vegetables once a week, as well as grocery cards for them. But families are coming from places where they don't trust people or anybody that represents the government or police or children's aid. So we try and invite people to come in and speak from those agencies, to come in plain clothes, hang out, play, be normal, be people first, and get to know them so that we take away that fear for them. And as we get to know them, we get to hear their stories. We get to hear what their barriers are to accessing our services. And we get to know what their misunderstandings are about Canada or about something they've been told. So I have a family that she was asking me for help. Her husband decided that he didn't like that she was taking advantage of some of the freedoms that women have in Canada. And he wanted a new wife that was going to be more subservient to him. So he went back to the country to get himself a new wife. And he left his wife and children here with no official divorce records and whatnot. So she was asking me a little bit about what to do. And then all of a sudden she disappeared. So I thought, you know what, let's go to her house and see what's going on. So I go to her house and visit her, and there are critters crawling around. She's only living in 2 bedrooms, but because one child is a male, she is required to have a 3rd bedroom, one for her, one for her the girl children, and one for the male children. She can't afford it. There's stuff falling from the ceiling. The plumbing is leaking, and the landlord just doesn't care to fix it. And she can't ask for emergency assistance because she has a roof over her head. If she was living in her car, they would help her, but living in this building, they weren't willing to. And so as I'm talking to her, she leans over and grabs a fingerful of cream cheese and starts rubbing it on her 3-month-old premature baby's gums. And I said, oh, what's going on here? And she says, oh, Tina, no milk. Doctors say, feed her, feed her. I said, okay. You did not mean cream cheese. How can I help you get formula? How can I help you with this? So we take a better look at the baby to see if what she's been feeding her has affected the baby. Baby's covered head to toe in a rash. So new medicine shows me antibiotics. Oh my goodness, is this an allergy to antibiotics? What's going on? So we get a babysitter to watch the older kids. We take the baby to the pharmacy where the script was. The pharmacist says it's a heat rash. Don't worry about it. I talked to him about the milk supply issue. He gives us some formula, which is wonderful. When I leave her, I go back to my office and make a million phone calls. And the next day I have a lactation consultant coming. She's bringing formula. We've got someone who can translate, who can help her understand more about feeding her baby. I've got a place for her to go to fill out the applications for subsidy and all this kind of stuff, right? But if she hadn't trusted me to let me in the door, I never would have found that out. And that's really what we do. The drop-in center, that's just a nice place for us to meet our families. But to be able to cater to individual families' needs is really what we specialize in. And because we're small, we can do that, which is wonderful. And they are doing very well. They have moved. They have, the baby is now 1 year old and is growing and flourishing. And it's great that we were able to help her with that. And we were also able to help her with all the other stuff that you need to do when your spouse has suddenly left you, like applying for OW, getting translators, opening a new bank account in her name, and Revenue Canada, and all those things that make my mind boggle. And I'm from here, so that was really rewarding to be able to help her like that. We also do a summer camp, and our focus on the summer camp is pre-literacy skills for children who are starting school in September. Unfortunately, the statistics for children who start school not being able to speak English, already at 4, the likelihood that they're actually going to graduate high school is less than 50% if they start school not knowing how to speak English. So last year's summer camp, we really worked on using books and play to teach children how to speak English, to get their minimum needs met. So we read a book called My Truck is Stuck. And so it's a cute little book, but it has words like please, help, stuck in it. Great words for going to school. And we also had a portable sink that you stepped on it and the water came out and then you could wash your hands. So we read it for a whole week. And then what we would do to make play-based activities for them is the evening before, we would set up the room where their favorite toys were stuck places or up too high, and found all kinds of reasons for them to say help, please, stuck. And then it happened organically for them as they were going throughout their day. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the day, we hear help, please, stuck. And we go over and look, and here's a little boy stepping on that water thing, and there's no water coming out. No. Well, not the right words for me to say that, right? But he was able to get his message across. And that is so huge because now he wasn't frustrated. He wasn't screaming and rolling on the ground and dysregulated. And as a teacher who has a whole bunch of students, most of whom don't speak English, to have a few that can at least some way communicate with us, it's huge. By the end of the summer, we only had 12 kids, which for me was great. We had 3 staff, so very low ratios. But we had children who walked in the door not knowing any English, being able to communicate their basic needs, bathroom, drink, help, kind of things. We had children who were very frustrated, who were screaming and yelling and knocking down things and pushing children. And we taught them ways to calm down, ways to cope with it before. So we bought headphones. So if they felt that things were getting too loud, they could put their headphones on. If they found that they needed to not sit at the snack table, but they were hungry, they had a card they could show us. We really worked with them to figure out how we could help them best. And then we wrote letters to the teacher from the point of view of the child. You know, I've spent the summer and I've learned all these things, and here are the resources if you would like to use them. And we gave it to the parents, and the parents could choose if they wanted to pass them on to school. We also learned that the parents were living in poverty and didn't have enough food to eat. Well, if the parents don't have enough food to eat, and Ahmed doesn't have enough food to eat, Ahmed's siblings don't have enough food to eat either. So we served them all food, not just the kids. We invited the whole family in to come for lunch. And we ended up with them all sitting at the same table. And I had the staff that worked with them, they sat at the table, but they rotated every day. And we got to know so much more about the families. So we met a family that was going through alcoholism, and we were able to guide them to different places to go for that. We met a woman who was so depressed that once she picked up her child, they stayed in their dark room for the rest of the day. And just by coming out and having lunch and meeting other parents and being able to talk with them, her whole mood changed as the weeks progressed. And we were able to help her find places where she could go to get help. I met a family whose kids had no shoes, so we were able to help them with that. But that was because we served them lunch. If we hadn't served them lunch, we wouldn't have been able to get to know these little things about them. So that was really exciting for us too. And then we were hit with the sad news that Glengarry, the housing unit at Glengarry, really needed the space that we were in. to serve their current clients. So in 1997-ish, when we first got to Glengarry, there were lots of families with little ones there. The dynamics have changed, and now they have a lot of single men living there in one-room apartments, and they really needed that space to be able to serve the needs of that community. So we had an opportunity to look around at the city of Windsor and see where else we could help people. And so we met with early on providers who were telling us that they didn't have any funds to do parent education or parent respite or cooking on a cooking nutritionally, or cooking using the food bank, which is what we teach them. They didn't have any space so that parents could do a craft and just relax for a little bit, or learn about benefit programs that are available to them. There's all kinds of new stuff coming up, but these families didn't know about it. So we discovered that we could go to early ons and they could do the child part. We could spend a couple of weeks getting to know the families, and then we could start offering our programs to them and see what would happen. And so we found 2 early on centers that we started off with. And the attendance has been so great that they would like us to come 4 times a month, not 1 time a month. But we're only able to go 1 time a month. And then we met the wonderful people over at Matthew House who have refugees who don't have a sponsor, who don't have a government agency helping them. And they have 4 walls, nothing stimulating their children, no toys for their children. Their children are just there. And sadly, we know about brain development and how important that stimulation is for their infants. Blank walls are not going to cut it for them. They're going to need more. So we were able to make a partnership with Matthew House, where we're also going in 2 days a week there. We're bringing in toys and music and things that are not glowing screens or 4 blank walls for them to look at and to play with and to have enrichment. And we're explaining to parents the purpose of the enrichment. We're giving them grocery cards so that because they walk to the grocery store, and they are encouraged to create their own kitchen for themselves. And so we're helping them with that as a thank you for coming out and getting to know us, because we're a new agency. Matthew House again has said, we could use you at our 2nd location. We could, there are so many different initiatives that we're doing where we really need help with the 0 to 6 population. And I've accidentally discovered that if I had 4 times the staff, I still wouldn't have enough staff to meet the need for Windsor. Our funding agency is Community Action Program for Children, which comes from the federal government. And we have the same number of dollars now that we did in 1997. So I looked it up just because I thought it was interesting. So $220,000 in 1997 is $425,000 today, what it bought then and what it bought now. And yet we are trying very hard to offer the same, the programs that work, to continue offering those and to move and offer new programs for our families. New programs are really not easy, but we can get funding for new programs. So we have gotten funding from Trillium to do a navigation service and forms completion service, not just for new Canadians, but for anybody who needs help. I have met some people who are Canadian born, and they go and they try to apply for OW, and they think they understand the steps, and then they hit a roadblock, and in their mind, they can't get around it. Even if people say, hey, let's try this, their mind says, nope, that's not going to work. And they can't do it. They don't want to, they just can't do it. And if they had someone that could hold their hand and help them through the process, they would be much more successful. And we are going to meet people where they are at. So I will call an agency that works with kids and offer to send my person to them so that their people don't have to come find us. And we'll make appointments, we'll meet with families, and we will help them apply for benefits. And then if they want us to go with them to meetings, we will go with them to meetings. Some of our families, they can't read English email, so we will help them over that barrier. And just to eliminate the barriers that are causing them to not be able to apply for benefits. So for our new Canadian people, in order to apply for OW, they have to be able to read the forms because there's no little click to translate button. So they're new, they don't know anybody, they have to find someone who can read the forms. Then they're gonna get an email or a phone call. So they have to find someone to read the email, because chances of them having someone who can translate for them when that magic phone call comes is not very well. And then they have to find someone to then call them to make the meeting schedule. And then they have to find someone to go with them. This is someone they don't know very well, and they're hearing all of their financial information. Their social insurance number, their immigration numbers, their address, everything. And this is the person that probably sits next to them at mosque. So if maybe you're doing something that, no matter what religion you are, you choose the tenets of your religion that you're going to follow, right? So I'm Lutheran, I'm not supposed to go into the casino and pull the handle, but I do, so do a lot of other Lutherans. But it's not being a hypocrite. We're people, and that's what we do. And it's the same with every religion. People choose the tenets of their religion that they're going to follow. Well, I may not want the person that's in the pew beside me to know what I'm choosing to follow and what I'm not. So I may choose to not apply for OW because I don't want that person to know that information. And coming from a country where when other people know information about you, they can use that against you, that's really going to make you want to say, no, I'm not going to do it. But I can't think of a person at my church that I would say, hey, would you come with me down to an OW meeting? I've known them my whole life. I still wouldn't want them to come do that for me. So I'm really happy that we have this service available, and I can't wait to see what comes of it. That's our new little venture. And then what we're working on for the future is to get operating funds. Most of the grants out there are for new initiatives, for seed grants, or for, oh, you had a little trial and now you want to expand it, for those. But for organizations like ourselves that have been around for a long time, there's not a lot of opportunity to apply for continuing funds. And so that's what we're fundraising for. And we would absolutely love any help and support that you could give us towards helping us come up with our operating funds. And also to tell more people about us. We've been around since 1997. We were the first family and child drop-in center in Windsor, and yet so many people don't know about us. So we would love to get the word out and let more people know that we exist and that we are happy to help in any way we can. Families with children 0 to 6, anywhere in Windsor. That's my thing. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.